Hello, students. Today we are conducting this introductory class for the foundation batch, which we are going to start, and also the test series, which we are going to start. So, in this class, we'll be discussing the detailed outline of those foundation classes as well as the test series. And also, we will try to discuss how comprehensively we can prepare for philosophy optional, uh, not only actually prepare, but also how best we can write also good answers. So those things we will be trying to discuss in today's class. Uh, so first let me start with the details of foundation batch as well as the test series which we are going to start very soon. See, first of all, we'll be starting foundation batch. Now, foundation batch basically will aim the exam of 2027. Now, this will start from 22nd of June. Now, this foundation batch will be basically of about 5 months. So, our target will be that in every month, for example, we'll start with first month from Indian philosophy, then we'll take up Western philosophy, then socio-political philosophy, and then lastly, philosophy of religion. So in 4 months, we'll complete the syllabus, and in fifth month, we will have intensive practice of various questions, tests, PYQs, etc. In fact, PYQs, etc., we will be taking up along with various topics also. So topics plus PYQs will be our, in fact, daily class routine also. We will be conducting 5 classes in a week. So uh, roughly we will in 5 months will not only complete this whole syllabus, but we'll also have a very thorough practice of writing also. Now, the students who join this foundation batch will also get access to the test series free of cost. So test series also will be available to them for whole year. Basically, in a year we propose to conduct at least 2 test series. So those test series also they can access and they can appear in that. And not only that, even the live lectures of other classes of beyond 5 months also they can access. So that will be taking up in foundation batch. Now, let me tell you about test series. Test series, again, we will be starting uh, from 21st of June. So, this test series will start 21st of June. This is Sunday. And every Sunday we'll be conducting the test. Now, we will be having 8 sectional tests and 4 full tests. So basically, we'll be in total, we'll be having about 12 tests. Now, sectional test, as you know, philosophy paper 1, paper 2 have 4 sections. Paper 1, part A, Western philosophy, part B, Indian philosophy. Paper 2, part A, socio-political philosophy, part B, philosophy of religion. So each sectional test will be having one part. For example, sectional test 1 will have Indian philosophy, B or 1 will have Western philosophy, 2 will have Western Indian philosophy, 3 will have socio-political philosophy, 4 will have philosophy of, in that sequence will proceed. So 8 sectional tests will cover these 4 sections twice. And then we will have 4 full tests in which 2 paper 1 and 2 paper 2, I mean, actual exam paper 2, 2 mock papers we will have for that and 2. Now, this test series will not only help 2027 because our main aim is 2027 exam, because foundation batch we are starting anyway. But this will also help those students who have qualified this year's prelims and are going to appear in 2026 exam. Because in test series, what we will be doing is we will we have already analyzed last PYQs, particularly recent years questions, and we have framed the questions, most probable topics and questions in a way which are almost similar to the questions or nature of questions being asked by UPSC. So the real time test will be anyway there, and then we will have one to one discussion also, one to one evaluation and discussion, and anyway we will be providing the model answers. So the main the point here is test series will have one to one evaluation and communication of model answers. So we will try to evaluate what are the deficiencies in the students in the way of writing and how it can be improved, and then anyway we will provide the model answer so that the students can understand. So since we are having 12 tests, so by the time student writes 12th test, definitely he will be able to understand how to write almost each and every topic or each and every question which he has attempted. So this, as I told earlier, this test series will be quite helpful to 2026 exam students also, and 2027 anyway it's combined with foundation bias, so it will be quite helpful. So the interested students definitely can enroll them in the test series. Now what I'm going to do is, besides foundation batch and test series I have anyway discussed and I have told what we are going to do. Now you should understand, in our coaching, basically, uh, see, or for any coaching that matters, the most important thing is, for any subject and equally important for philosophy optional, what to study, and second is how to study. Then third is what to write, and fourth is how to write. So these four things, which are very important for any student, and these are the only things which are important: what he should study, how he should study so that his retaining capacity or retention is maximum, what he should write in actual exam, in practice test, and how to write so that he can score better marks. So these things we will take up in foundation batch. Now, as you know, since test series is only about writing, so for test series, third and fourth point, third plus fourth will be for test series. Because how to write and what to write, what to study, how to study, and these 2 points also, all 4 points will include in our foundation batch. Now, today in class, I'm going to discuss, besides all these details, uh, what can be the comprehensive study for a strategy for any student who is preparing for philosophy optional. Second, how to write good answers. So these two things we will discuss today very briefly. In subsequent classes, definitely I'm going to elaborate much more on that with various examples from various topics. So today's class, we are going to take up what should be our strategy, best strategy for any student for philosophy optional, for preparation, overall preparation, and what he should do for writing good answers. So now let us go to that. So first we will discuss the comprehensive strategy for philosophy optional. See, before I go to in detail the actual strategy, let me tell you the optional subject in UPSC is very, very important. As you know, the optional subject is of 500 marks. Now, if you score about, let us say, 280 plus, you are going to get your name in the list. Sometimes what happens is students do quite well in their GS papers, but because they are not able to perform well in optional subjects, their names do not appear in this list of selected candidates. So, what I want to say is optional subject is very, very critical if anybody wants to get selected in UPSC. As you know, there are two papers, paper 1, paper 2. We will be discussing in detail what contains paper 1, what is in paper 2, how we can prepare well in paper 1, paper 2. So let us go ahead. Now, most of you who have selected philosophy optional as your subject, I don't know whether what reasons are there for you to select, but let me tell you a number of positive points which philosophy optional has and a few negative points also, so that you should be well aware that how, I mean, which the subject which you have selected, how well it is with you. See, first point is philosophy deals with very fundamental questions related to life itself. That is knowledge and truth, reality and existence, morality, justice and duty, then religion, belief, and human values. And all are very interesting subjects. If you have ever thought about these are very, very interesting and relevant subjects for anybody. So the subject is quite interesting. If you are really concerned about life, its values, its way of living. Now, also, this subject works very well for students from engineering, medicine, science, commerce, and humanities, all alike. As you know, philosophy is not taught in any school till 12th class. So it is first introduced in graduation only. And since this subject is a very general kind of subject, so any particular background is not very favorable for it. So all are almost equal. So this, what I want to say is this subject, philosophy, is equal for all backgrounds, whether it is engineering, whether it is medicine, whether it is science, whether it is commerce, whether it is humanities. So any student can take. Now, what are the various other positive points? Let us go in detail, little more detail. See, first point is it has a very short and well-defined syllabus. It actually it has one of the shortest and most clearly defined syllabus of UPSC optionals. In fact, I appeared in the exam in 91, and the syllabus which was there in 91 or 90 or 92, same syllabus continues now also. So syllabus is mostly static. So not only it has been static over the time, but it's static otherwise also, because the current affairs or the various changes in economy or politics are not going to affect much except a few questions in paper 2. So no daily current affairs burden, except as I told in paper 2, 1 or 2 questions relate to current affairs. Then concepts once understood remain valid for years. I have understood the concept in 1990. And it's relevant now also because it's same. If you talk of ontology of Kant, same. If you talk about epistemology of Berkeley, it's same. If you talk about Advaita Vedanta, same. Nothing has changed. So what I want to say it with regular and focused study, the entire syllabus can be completed in 3 or 4 months. And anyway, our foundation batch is in 5 months. We are completing very intensively. We are going to complete in 5 months with intensive study along with writing practice. So as you know, if you give 5 months for philosophy, you are done. After that, only revision will remain. Second very, very important point is it has very strong overlap with general studies, essay, and interview. General studies, ethics paper. In fact, actually, I'm also starting the ethics foundation batch and ethics text series also. And I can tell you, philosophy and ethics are very, very closely related. Actually, ethics is a branch of philosophy. Most of you may be knowing already. Because ethics deals with, in fact, philosophy has a number of branches. For example, ontology is there, which deals with what is truth or what is the substance. Then epistemology, the theory of knowledge, and then ethics, the moral theories. So basically, ethics is a branch of philosophy. So GS paper 4, in fact, for philosophy students, it's very, very easy to understand the various ethical theories and its application also. It will be very easy. Similarly, essay paper. In essay also, secularism is there, communalism is there, liberty, equality, happiness, ethics, leadership. See, all those terms which are from philosophy are relevant there. Then in interview, questions on decision making, because see, ethics paper is very, very related with interview. And ethics is in fact related with philosophy. So decision making, ethics, governance, human behavior, all require philosophical clarity. So philosophy paper is quite helpful, or optional is quite helpful for ethics, for essay, for interview as a whole. As I told earlier also, this is suitable for all educational backgrounds. It does not require any prior academic background. Many high scorers actually in philosophy have in previous years been engineers and science graduates, because the subject requires logic and clarity. It depends on reasoning, and background knowledge gives no special advantage. Then philosophy optional improves thinking and expression. You are trained to think in a very structured manner. You analyze problems from multiple perspectives, because no perspective is true. As we know, in Jainism, we have Anekantvad, Syadvad, etc. But otherwise also in philosophy, no philosophical system claims that they are absolute. Write balanced and logical answers. So all this will improve your thinking and expression, and this helps in GS answers, essay, interviews, etc. So in brief, let us go to advantages of philosophy optional once again. First thing is short and static syllabus. Second is easy integration with ethics, essay, and interview, etc. Third is emphasis on clarity and logic, and therefore it is equal to almost all backgrounds. So equal opportunities for all, and high scoring with smart preparation. So 280 plus marks are achievable in philosophy. It has been earlier obtained by many students. In fact, in my exam, I mean, it's not very relevant, because in 1990, I've given the exam. I have got, in fact, because of philosophy only, I was selected. So Therefore, what I want to say is this is very, very, interesting subject as far as scoring marks is also concerned. But there are a few challenges also. So it's not that it's all positive, because some abstract thinking or abstract thinkers are there or abstract theories are there. So in philosophy, we also have abstract theories. So that we will try to devote more time, and particularly Western philosophy. Most of the students, they feel that Western philosophy is quite abstract, and particularly some philosophers in Western philosophy. So there we'll try to definitely focus more with simple notes, diagrams, repeated revision, etc. Then recently, last 2 3 years, analytical and critical questions, evaluatory questions have increased in paper. Exam paper. So that also will try to, uh, address with regular practice of PYQs and also the model mock tests, etc. Then it also requires writing precision, and actually writing precision is required by whole UPSC. Even other papers also. So that also can be improved by continuous writing, answer writing with proper feedback. So philosophy, if you are really interested, definitely you will do very well in philosophy, and with us, definitely you are bound to, do quite better. Now, success rate also is important when we choose the subjects. Now, in philosophy, first thing, philosophy is taken by quite smaller number of candidates. So, the success rate in those optionals which are, because see, there are a few optionals, for example, history is there, geography is there, public ed is there. So, these are taken by large number of candidates. But philosophy, along with a few other subjects, very few candidates do take. Usually in mains philosophy, about 500 to 600 candidates appear in philosophy mains, and the success rate is 6 to 8% over years, which is quite good for the optionals with a smaller number of candidates. Usually every year about 30, 25 to 30 candidates with philosophy optional are selected, or even more also. Some year it will be 35 40 also, but minimum will be 25 to 30. So this consistency of 6 to 8% indicates stable evaluation, predictable question patterns, and good returns for serious preparation. So one has to prepare seriously, and particularly the writing practice, etc. Now let us try to understand the syllabus. So these are the basically positive and a few negative points, particularly related to philosophy optional. Now, in our comprehensive strategy, first we should try to understand what is the syllabus. Actually, syllabus and PYQs. So unless we study these two, we will not be able to devise the strategy properly. So now let us try to understand the syllabus. It has two papers, as you know, each 250 marks. Paper 1 has Indian and Western philosophy. Section A is Western philosophy, section B is Indian philosophy. Here it has been little wrongly written, it's section B. So what is covered in Indian philosophy? Astic systems. There are two classifications, Nastic and Astic. Astic, those philosophical systems which believe in Vedas. Astic is not believing in God here. So that's very, very careful. Astic is basically believing in Vedas. So Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaishesik, Mimamsa, Vedanta, etc., they are Astic systems. Nastic systems, Buddhism, Jainism, Charvak, because they don't believe in Vedas. So Astic and Nastic means belief in Vedas. And the key themes about these topics will be reality and causation. Reality is basically ontological theories, causation theories, then self and liberation, then epistemology, that is theory of knowledge, pramanas, and then details about God, karma, dharma, etc. Usually in coaching or in this thing, we will start, in fact, earlier uh, also in my mentorship, we usually start with Indian philosophy, but it's easy to understand. You are more acquainted with it. It is logically grounded and overlaps well with ethics. So we will also in our foundation batch start with Indian philosophy. Then we'll proceed with, in first month we will complete Indian philosophy. Then we will take up Western philosophy, then socio-political philosophy, and then we'll do with philosophy of religion. So always it's better or easier to start with Indian philosophy, that we should understand. In Western philosophy, basically the topics will be first Plato and Aristotle, they are Greek philosophers. Then rationalists, Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz. Then empiricist, Locke, Berkeley, and Hume. And then we will have Kant and Hegel. And then modern philosophy, analytic philosophy, and existentialism also. So all these are quite important topics. And the core focus here will be knowledge, that is again epistemology, reality, that is ontology. So now these terms you will be, we will be metaphysics. Ontology is also called metaphysics. So basically these terms we will be using again and again. Knowledge is epistemology. So anyway, in our future classes, we will be discussing in detail all these things, terms, etc. So the core focus here will be knowledge, reality, and ethics and values. Now, this as I told, Western philosophy usually students find little difficult because they are not very in touch with the Western philosophers. So here, comparison tables may be of help, particularly rationalism, empiricism, Kant, Hume, and one by one philosophers are related also, because if you start in sequence, you will find the interrelations also. Now, paper 2, socio-political philosophy and philosophy of religion. Here section A is socio-political philosophy, which covers the topics like justice, liberty, equality, rights, democracy, sovereignty, then Marxism, secularism, communalism, Gandhi, Ambedkar, caste, gender, environment. Now, if you understand, all these topics can be essay topics also, and GS paper 2 themes also. So actually, socio-political philosophy is can be linked with essay, can be linked with GS paper 2, and to some extent with current affairs also. But mostly it is related with Indian scenario or Indian constitution. So if we deal with justice, liberty, or equality, or democracy or sovereignty, we have to link Indian constitution or Indian context definitely. So that we should try to understand. Now, philosophy of religion. Here, the topic will be basically nature and function of religion, then God. Now, God plus proofs of existence also. So, first thing, nature of God, then proofs of existence of God. Then problem of evil, faith and reason, moksha, nirvana, immortality, etc. And all these themes we will try to study with both Indian and Western perspectives. And most of the times questions are also asked in comparable manner, Indian and Western. So our study also will be accordingly. Now, what can be the step-by-step preparation strategy? As I told earlier also, we should start with Indian philosophy. So for first 1 month, first month Indian philosophy, then move to Western philosophy, and more our focus should be on understanding. A few things definitely we will have to remember, memorize, but then the main focus should be on understanding. We'll try to make concise notes for every topic. In fact, I will be giving the class notes, my class notes for almost all the topics. And those notes will be almost self-sufficient kind, but still I will suggest some books also, so that also you can anyway study. So one has to make concise notes for every topic containing definition, core idea, arguments, criticism, comparison, relevance. Now this is very important. Criticism, comparison, and relevance. Nowadays the more emphasis on this: critical, comparative, and evaluatory. Critical, comparative, and evaluatory. So the emphasis should be on this. So definitely we'll try to take up all these things in our classes. Then integrate with GS and essay, because that will help those papers also. This very intelligent way of preparing. Whatever topic you prepare, if that helps in other papers also, your effort to that extent reduces. So use philosophical ideas in ethics answers, apply concepts in essay topics. This saves time and improves your depth also in those papers. Now I keep on telling to my students, writing practice is very important, and there is no substitute for that. So answer writing practice will be our very important focus. And we suggest that begin with small answers, 150 words, gradually move to longer 250, 300 word answers, and then follow a fixed pattern: introduction, explanation, criticism, conclusion. Now criticism also includes comparison, as I told earlier, because comparative analysis also needs to be done. Revision and testing, revise notes repeatedly, solve PYQs. Our special emphasis in our classes also will be on PYQs, because without analysis of PYQ, you cannot proceed further. So syllabus and PYQ, these are the main tools for actual analysis and identifying the topics which need a lot of focus. Then taking mock tests, as we have already integrated test series in foundation batch. So mock tests also, and analyze them carefully. What are your deficiencies? What you are not able to catch, not write properly. So that we will try to understand. Now these are book lists which I am recommending. For Indian philosophy, C.D. Sharma book, then another Satish Chatterjee and Datta, then outlines of Indian philosophy by Hiriana, and then IGNOU notes also you can supplement. And besides that, our class notes also will be there. Then for Western philosophy, Russell, for selective reading, you need not read whole book. Then Datta and Chatterjee, again Western philosophy. Then Critical Survey of Western Philosophy by Massey. Then Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy for modern thinkers particularly, also you can go through. Socio-Political Philosophy, O.P. Gauba, Rajiv Bhargava, and Ashok Acharya. IGNOU notes, all these are quite helpful. Then Philosophy of Religion by Massey, John Hick, for a few topics, important topics he has discussed. Then practice material, as I told, PYQs, very important. Toppers copies from coaching we can get. Then limited test series, we are anyway conducting test series. This will be quite useful. One thing I just want to caution, do not keep your resources unlimited, because then you unnecessarily will spread your focus, because this is not, you are not doing any research paper. So your resources should be limited and selected. Resources, study resources actually, limited and selective. Answer writing practice is very important. We will focus anyway in our classes. So clarity, concept, criticism, conclusion, all these are important components of answer writing. Particularly underline key terms and philosophers' names. That's also very important. So basically, philosophy optional can be a very high scoring subject if we study properly and intelligently. Definitely we are going to fetch better marks. Now, this analysis is not complete unless we analyze last year's exam paper. In fact, I after the exam itself, I conducted detailed analysis last year. So this whatever I have told till now has to be basically uh, read or understood along with the analysis of 2025 exam papers, because 2025 exam paper has enhanced focus on a number of things which should be understood by the student, and then the student should actually study in that modulated manner. So now let us try to understand what special things 2025 exam paper brings to us. Now, I present detailed presentation. Will go very selectively only, just to understand what 2025 exam paper gives us. So this overall understanding of paper. So I'm not going to that, because the if you see, the format was same, number of questions were same, wordings were same. So it's not that any new thing was there. But UPSC is now slowly moving towards philosophical thinking. Now, what is philosophical thinking? See, they're not simply asking to describe, because earlier the questions were asked describe. Now, evaluate, compare, judge. So all these are more and more in number. We will see, try to see also how it was different. Format, as I told, is same. So I'm not going to discuss that. Areas also, almost all topics were covered. So because Plato, Aristotle, Descartes, Hume, Kant, etc., all these fellows, the topics often, they appear regularly in this thing. But what has happened was, earlier the questions, as I told, was asked, explain Kant's view, or on, let us say, on God, or explain Kant's moral argument for existence of God, or discuss Hume's theory, Hume's bundle theory, let us say. But now, what the questions are being, differently framed. What are those questions? Evaluation, comparison, and critical engagement. And this is the main focus of this 2025 focus area. Evaluation, comparison sometimes between the Western philosophers, or sometimes between Western philosophy and Indian philosophers also. Evaluation, you have to tell about positive points, negative points, both. And critical engagement, you have to critically evaluate the thing. What is its relevance for modern day? So all those things are now included. Indian philosophy, the topics, Nyaya Vaisesik, Sankhya, Advaita Vedanta, all these are important topics and appear regularly. But here, the students are expected to use correct Sanskrit terms, because in Indian philosophy, mostly, except Buddha and Jaina, all are Sanskrit terms only. Understand internal debates between one philosopher and the other, and clearly distinguish between different schools and sub-schools of the same philosophical system. For example, in Mimamsa, there is Bhatt Mimamsa, Kumar Mimamsa. So you have to differentiate. In fact, the question was also asked like that. So shift from description to criticism. So this was the main focus, and accordingly, our preparation also should be modulated. So in 2023 exam, descriptive answers more. 2024 criticism became important. 2025 criticism became unavoidable. So critically evaluation or critical evaluation was more and more in number. So most questions, what happens? Is this argument logically sound? What are its weaknesses? How do other philosophers respond? So if these are included, then this becomes comparative and critical. So, for example, Kant must be examined along with objections. Advaita Vedanta must be discussed with Nyaya and Buddhist criticism. Verification theory must be analyzed along with its failures. So now only description or describe will not function. You have to understand critical thing, you have to understand comparative things, you have to properly evaluate relevance, and then you have to conclude. So importance of technical precision is another thing, because once you go from description to comparison, evaluation, criticism, the technical language becomes very, very important. So some vague language is not going to help you. For example, if you say knowledge is valid, is not enough, because which is more important, Swata Pramanvad or Parta Pramanvad? Particularly if you can take the help of modern science also. So this change now is expected in the preparation strategy also. Similarly, difference between Bhatt Mimamsa and Prabhakar Mimamsa. Then nuances in theories of error, causation, and liberation in Indian philosophy. So this is very, very important change. Now, role of analytic philosophy and language. This also has got greater emphasis in 2025 exam paper. Philosophy of language, meaning and verification, criticism of empiricism, and even though every year questions appear on these topics, Russell's theory or Wittgenstein's theory or verification theory, but here the difference was again analytical questions, critical perspective, comparative perspective. So that one has to be more careful. So how 2025 is different? Now let us try to, for paper 1, let us try to conclude. It expects integration and depth. It also expects linking of ideas, Indian and Western philosophy, classical thinkers and modern debates, explanations and criticism. So this also was one of the key features of this. So what students should do? No part of the syllabus can be ignored, because that anyway almost every year it has, covered almost whole syllabus. Conceptual clarity matters more than the volume. Comparison and criticism are essential. Technical terms must be used carefully. Answers must be structured and focused. So tables, brief comparisons, and clear conclusions, this will help a lot while preparing. So we will be anyway focusing on this in our classes. Now we'll go to paper 2. Paper 2, again the structure was almost same, but examiner now is not satisfied with definitions or summaries only. Every questions expect students to have clear standing of ideas, ability to compare thinkers, critical evaluation, and relevance to contemporary issues. Now, for example, socio-political philosophy. Now, questions which were asked, let us take up one example. Justice and equality, Marxism as ideology, secularism in multicultural societies, Kautilya's idea of sovereignty, democracy, and liberty. These were the topics from which questions were asked. But the way they are asked has been more demanding. So this is important, because the topics almost same every year, but here the questions are different. For example, justice and equality, if you take. Questions related to justice and equality appear every year. But here examiner expects students to be comfortable with classical views, modern theories, Indian perspective. So it's not that one simple definition or simple this thing will be sufficient. Similarly, Indian political thought in socio-political philosophy is gaining importance. Now, there was focus, there was question on Kautilya's view of sovereignty in 2025. So, what UPSC wants? Expanding political philosophy beyond Western thinkers, expecting students to seriously study Indian texts like Arthashastra, etc. So now Indian thinkers are not only optional or add-ons, because earlier it was there, more emphasis was on Western thinkers. So that students should keep in mind. Then applied questions are increasing in paper 2, socio-political philosophy. The questions are secularism in multicultural society is a good example. So here students are expected to connect ideas with Indian constitutional values, minority rights, religious diversity, contemporary political debates. Now this confirms the application is now essential. So applicability, social applicability. So therefore, a student who knows political theories can apply them to Indian and global concepts, can balance theory and practical relevance, will get better marks in paper 2 part A. Now philosophy of religion. Now let us try to understand what was the new thing in philosophy of religion part B of paper 2. The topics covered were almost same, but again the questions were framed differently. How? Let us try to understand. For example, religious language. Now religious language, symbols, cognitive versus non-cognitive language, verification, and now they asked a question linked with anirvachaniyata. So this shows what? You have to prepare the topic linking Western debates and Indian metaphysical perspectives, both. Similarly, proofs for existence of God. Nyaya proofs for existence of God were asked. But student must explain Nyaya reasoning clearly, critically examine it, compare it with Western thinkers like Thomas Aquinas or Immanuel Kant, mention objections from Buddhism, Charvak, etc. So only description will not be sufficient. Similarly, the question was on immortality and rebirth. Now this, using Bhagavad Gita, a student must explain the idea of rebirth, examine whether immortality of the soul is necessary, compare with Buddhist anatta, refer to Kant's moral argument if relevant. So basically, more and more comparison with intra-system and inter-system also. Similarly, religious experience and pluralism. Questions were asked on Radhakrishnan's and Vivekanand, but it requires that present thinkers view sympathetically, then critically evaluate it, address problems like exclusivism and conflicting truth claims. And if we compare in previous years, 2022-23 leaned more towards Western philosophy. 2024 focused strongly on analytical philosophy. 2025 shows a return to Indian thinkers, but without ignoring Western debates. Now, the key change in integration: Indian plus Western, classical plus modern, faith plus reason. Difficulty level was moderate. I mean, it's not that difficult, but then for those students who have only read the descriptive thing, for them, definitely it was a difficult question paper. So here, depth of analysis is required. Range of thinkers has to be increased. Level of critical evaluation is expected. So students who prepared only for descriptive knowledge superficially, they will definitely find the paper tough. So for future or for preparation, what one should learn: certain topics repeat every year. Indian and Western philosophy must be prepared together, particularly in context of philosophy of religion. Criticism is not optional now. Critical evaluation or criticism or comparison is must. Socio-political answers must need real-world relevance and particularly Indian relevance. Clear structure improves marks significantly. So basically, now we have a strategy. Now, if we apply this strategy, analysis of syllabus, analysis of PYQs, in fact, I have done already. So we'll be able to identify a few important topics on which our focus will be maximum, or our focus should be maximum. So now let me just give you a list of those topics, because anyway those things we will be discussing in detail in the class. So see, important topics arrived at after detailed analysis. I would like to show you uh, of, see how important topics have been analysis of syllabus, very carefully, plus analysis of PYQs. After this, for each topic, basically all topics we have to cover anyway, important subtopics I have identified. Now let me explain. For example, Western philosophy, Plato, Plato's theory of forms. So first thing what we will do in the class, anyway we will study all philosophical aspects of Plato. And after that, we will try to focus on these selected subtopics. This is for every topic, main topic. So Plato's theory of forms, then theory of recollection or theory of reminiscence, then Plato's analogy of cave. Aristotle's doctrine of form and matter, causation, potentiality and actuality, a universal exists only in particular. While Plato's metaphysics is, these questions mostly, as I told, arrived at, or subtopics arrived at after detailed analysis of syllabus and PYQs. So while Plato's metaphysics is visionary, Aristotle's metaphysics is descriptive. We have to critically evaluate that. Then Descartes, cogito ergo sum, Cartesian method, doctrine of Cartesian dualism, interactionism, Spinoza. So accordingly, I have selected, or I have arrived at the subtopics for all the topics. This is Western philosophy. Then we'll go to Indian philosophy, Jainism, theory of Saptabhanginaya, Anekantvad, bondage and liberation, Syadvad, then Buddhism, Pratyut Samutpad, concept of Sunyata, Anattavad or Anatmavad or Nairatmavad, all three are same. Then Kshanikvad, then Antahkriya Kanditva, then Nirvana, then Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya Vaishesik, very important, one of the very important chapters. A number of questions have been repeated again and again. So accordingly, some topics will have more subtopics, some will be having less depending on their importance. Charvak, then Mimamsa, then schools of Vedanta, very, very important topic. So we have accordingly a number of these things. Arvindo is there. Then philosophy of religion, notion of God, proofs of existence of God, problem of evil, one of the very interesting chapters of philosophy. Most of the students will find it very, very interesting. Then soul, immortality, rebirth and liberation. This is also very interesting. Reason, revelation and faith, religious experience, religion and God, religion and morality, religious pluralism and problem of absolute truth, nature of religious language. This is again very interesting topic. Then socio-political philosophy, we have equality, justice, and liberty, a number of questions or topics, subtopics. Austin, Bodin, Lasky, Kautilya. Then individual and state, rights, duties, and accountability. Forms of government, monarchy, political ideology, anarchism, Marxism, socialism. Then humanism, secularism, multiculturalism. Then crime and punishment, corruption, mass violence, genocide, capital punishments. A number of subtopics have been identified. Then gender discrimination, then development and social progress, then caste discrimination, particularly focusing on Gandhi and Ambedkar. So till now, we have discussed basically what should be our strategy and what we should study. Now we will try to focus briefly what to write and how to write. Just a guidance, because detail anyway will take up in test series discussions and in foundation class discussions. But here I just want to give a checklist kind of thing to the students, how to write good answers basically, or what is the definition of a good answer as far as philosophy optional is concerned. So first I will try to tell you answer writing checklist for a student for UPSC philosophy optional in brief. See, first you want to try to understand the question properly. Most of the students, what they do, they try to write anything which you know about that topic. So that is not going to fetch you good marks. You have to understand the question very, very clearly. Break the question in parts, see exactly what is being asked, not what you know or not you what you feel writing on that topic. It's not essay that you write anything. In fact, in essays also you cannot write anything. You have to focus mainly on the topic or mainly on the question. So you have to pay attention to directive of the question. So understanding directive of the question is very, very important. If it is discuss, a few examples I have given, explain both sides. If it is examine, then analyze reason and implications. If it is critically evaluate, then explain, criticize, give your judgment. Final, your views also you have to give. Do not write everything you know about the topic. This is the most important mistakes students commit. Write only what the question demands or what has been asked to write. And a good balanced question is 60% explanation and 40% critical evaluation or comparative evaluation. So understanding the directive of the question, again I will say, is most important thing. And in fact, I have evaluated a number of earlier test series. I find that most students commit mistakes. If you have studied some topic, you tend to write unnecessary things which has not been asked also. Now, second is be clear about concepts. Because see, it's not, see, unless you are clear, you will vaguely, if you write, examiner will catch. So define important terms early. So not only you have to be clear, but you have to define or you have to bring that early in your answer. For example, substance, a priori, pramana, a few terms are there. Avoid vague words like very important, deep concept. So keep your argument consistent. Do not contradict yourself. In one paragraph, you say something, in another paragraph, you cannot say anything. So clear thinking matters more than difficult language. So important, very important. Use philosophers carefully. You have to give names of the philosophers also, or their important philosophical terms. So names, references, terms. Use of this has to be intelligently done. Use to be intelligently done. So intelligently means you have to mention right thing. For example, if Descartes is there, cogito ergo sum. If we are talking of Advaita Vedanta Tattvamasi, if Buddhism Anatta, so we should know where to mention what. And do not force quotations. Correct attribution is more important than fancy quotes. Please understand that. Never write one-sided answers. Because in philosophy, if somebody has given some theory, definitely there are critics also. And they have criticized their theories. They have given some counter theories. So if I mean, number of words permit, because different questions will have different number of words, you have to definitely mention other side also somehow. So for every theory, say what it explains well, and then say where it faces problems. Use counter views. For example, Hume against Descartes. These are examples. These are, because once you study the topic, you will understand for which topic, who is giving counter, who are the critiques there. Hume against Descartes, Nyaya against Advaita, Buddhism against permanent self. So philosophy is basically about debate, not agreement. We are not agreeing with everybody. One philosopher has said something, other has criticized that or found some deficiency or some problem in that. So that we should know and we should try to mention. I mean, some insights should be shown. As I told, vague words will not help you. Cliches will not help you. So For example, if you say this is very relevant today, this is not going to help much, because you have to explain how and why it is relevant. So that we should understand. Another important thing, respect word limits. I have found a number of students who either do not follow the word limit, well below the word limit, or exceed the word limits. No one you are doing exceeding perhaps may not be possible, because in UPSC actual space is given, but still word limit following is very, very important. So usually I prescribe 10 marks, 150 words, 15 marks, about 200 to 225 words, 20 marks, about 300 words you have to write. Word limit respect is very, very important. Use comparisons wisely. Comparisons are required only when helpful and relevant. Irrelevant comparisons you should not do. Otherwise, you are marks going to be deducted. So, for example, sometimes Western philosophy needs to be compared with Indian philosophy. For example, Descartes with Sankara, Plato, Nyaya and Reality, Kant and Gita on duty. So do not just compare to show knowledge. Compare only when it strengthens the answer. Modern examples. Now, in few cases, modern examples or modern scientific truths or modern scientific theories also may help or may relevant to be mentioned. For example, Anatta neuroscience, AI ethics, Kant. Similarly, other things also you can find, particularly theories of knowledge, a number of modern developments you can try to mention if required. Connect with bigger philosophical issues. So Descartes, for example, with certainty, Kant with moral law, Buddhism with impermanence and suffering. So once you connect with larger problem or larger issue, that shows that you have deeply understand the topic. Then Indian and Western ideas have to blend naturally in comparisons. For example, Neti Neti from Indian philosophy, methodic doubt of Descartes, then karma and determinism. Because sometimes what we have done is, students do, in the name of comparison, they just write anything. For example, Indian philosophy is spiritual, Western is rational. So this is not, you are not going to get good marks for this. This is very, very simplistic line. Use philosophical terms correctly. As I told, philosophical terms we have to use, because in fact, one more thing I just want to tell students, you have to prepare a notebook. Now, notebook can be physical or digital, depending on your requirement, and topic wise list of philosophical terms you can prepare. In fact, we will help you in preparing in classes. Terms you can prepare and you can use while answering or writing practice. So this has to be done. So terms like ontology, epistemology, teleology, dukkha, etc. So a number of terms, and each topic wise different terms will be there. Not only terms, philosophical terms, but even names, references, that also you can do. Keep a clear structure of your answer. A good structure. Now, if word limit permits, sometimes if word limit is very, very small, 150 words, and so their introduction may not be possible. But if otherwise, introduction, explanation, analysis, criticism, comparison, conclusion. So these are important steps. Each paragraph wise you can change. If required, bullet points you can put. If required, numbering also you can give. Suppose question is list out. So list out means bullets you can put. Numbers 1, 2, 3 you can put. ABCD you can put, depending on. Linking paragraphs. A number of connecting words are there. For example, however, therefore, in contrast. So all these words help in linking one paragraph to the other. Refer text only when useful. As I told, references needs to be referred, but then one has to be cautious enough that one has to refer it when it's useful. For example, meditations by Descartes, Brahma Sutra Bhasya, then Moola Madhyama Karika. So, I mean, these are examples, but a number of references are there. In each philosophical system, there are philosophers, there are their books, etc. There are philosophical terms. So all those list out we can put, and wherever required, wherever relevant, we can refer that. Now, ethical and practical angle for paper 2. Paper 2, particularly socio-political philosophy, link justice, liberty, equality, ethics, etc. And particularly you have to also link it with Indian context. So this is also important. Presentation, underline key terms and names, use bullets. So this is very, very important, because if you write something important or good, that should immediately catch the attention of the examiner. So that should be done. Then conclusion, end with a thoughtful conclusion. Do not repeat the introduction, because sometimes what is first line also becomes the last line. That should not be there. So end with a reflective line. For example, Cogito begins a method, not final certainty. Sunita denies permanence, not meaning. So these are some examples. We'll, in writing practice, we'll take up a number of examples. So sometimes short quote is fine. Similarly, start with focused introduction. So introduction also is very, very important, just like conclusion. So you may begin with a question, a paradox, or a sharp statement. For example, what can we know with certainty? So such kind of question mark beginning also is very, very sometimes catchy and attracts the attention of the examiner immediately. Diagrams, flow charts, etc., if needed, because sometimes it may be required, sometimes may not be required. So you have to judge it. We will, in classes, we will definitely discuss that. For example, karma cycle, liberation paths, complex systems. For example, Pratyut Samutpad, Buddha's Pratyut Samutpad is there. There you have to draw some diagram. That is very good thing you can do. But it should not be for decoration. It should be for explaining the answer which you are writing. Manage time and energy. So this is very, very important in the actual exam. So that anyway we'll try to practice in our practice tests also, in test series also. Common mistakes to avoid: over general statements, extreme claims, because in philosophy extreme claims are not required. You have to be balanced. Writing essays instead of philosophical answers, using outdated casual language, that we should try to avoid. So a philosophy answer should be simple, clear, balanced, and thoughtful. Now, this is what checklist for the students. Now, I just want to tell students who are attending today, examiner's checklist for UPSC philosophy optional also. Because from student side, we have seen how students should write an answer. Now, from examiner side, let me explain, because I have, in fact, my test series also, I will be evaluating the answer sheets or questions by this checklist only. And for UPSC, this checklist is very, very important. So while writing or giving any mock test, etc., or practice tests also, the students should keep in mind this examiner's checklist for UPSC philosophy optional. This is from examiner's point of view or his perspective. Now, just before I go in deep, see, have you ever thought that how much time an examiner will give for evaluating your one question? See, in my opinion, it will not be more than 1 minute or maximum 2 minutes. Your whole paper has to be evaluated in 25 to 30 minutes, not more than that. So, if 25 to 30 minutes are divided for whole paper, you can understand each question will get not even more than 1 minute, or maximum 1.5. Some question 1.5, some question half minute, depending on how well you have written basically. So this is very, very important thing, which an examiner usually checks hundreds of answers in limited time. Fatigue, repetition, weak presentation, mechanical language, and irrelevant writing gradually reduce attention span. Because of this, the examiner is constantly looking for one thing. Does this candidate genuinely understand philosophy, or is he merely reproducing prepared material? This is very, very important. So, he basically, our examiner judges at two levels. First level is surface level. Second is depth level. Now, surface level, what does it mean? He will just see visually your answer, and he will see its presentation, its structure, its readability, and directive compliance. Whether the answer is legible, whether you can read it easily, whether it has been presented properly, whether directive has been complied, whether both parts or all parts of the question has been answered properly. So all this will be surface level. Depth level, conceptual clarity. Now then he will go to the content. What you have written, whether it is good content, whether conceptual clarity is there, whether philosophical maturity is there, or whether analytical ability is there. And if in both fronts you succeed, high scoring answers, I mean, definitely high score you will get. If not, see, if you fail at first level, you are not going to even cross 75 or 100 marks. If you pass at first and reach to second, at least you will cross 100. Now, if depth level is good, definitely 125, 130, sometimes 140, 150 also one student can get. So now let us go in little more detail. Phase 1, first impression for 3 to 5 seconds. What examiner will do? The examiner evaluates your ideas. He evaluates your answer sheet visually. He will just see it. Now the first impression is very, very important. And what examiner will see? Is the handwriting readable without effort? Does the page look balanced or overcrowded? Are paragraphs visible? Is there proper spacing and margin discipline? Has the student started directly with the concept? Does the answer look manageable to read? So a clean answer creates psychological comfort for the examiner, and then he will proceed further in a very positive mind. But a cluttered answer creates resistance even before the actual evaluation begins. Sometimes if these things are not followed, and even if good content is written, you may not get good marks. So this is first step, which is very, very important and necessary. So toppers, basically, first step and second step both needs to be followed. What strong candidates do differently, or good candidates do? They keep the paragraph short, avoid huge blocks of text, underline important philosophical terms, maintain visual rhythm, and introduce the central concept early. It's not the last, because any examiner will try to search that central concept. And if it is visible early, he will understand that, yes, student is hitting bullseye. This is very, very important. So first few lines matter enormously. So within 3-4 lines, the examiner should know which thinker or theory is being discussed, what is the central issue, and what direction the answer will take. Weak openings usually begin with general philosophical statements. For example, one example I have given, but this is a very, very general example. For example, let us say weak opening. Philosophy is a very vast subject since ancient times. Now, what can be the strong opening? For Kant, synthetic a priori judgments are necessary condition for scientific knowledge because they combine universality and factual. Now, this attracts examiner's attention, and he understands that the student has understood Kant very well. Phase 2, directive compliance. Now, after visual this thing, examiner will go for another 5-10 seconds directive compliance. So, what examiner will see, as I have discussed earlier also in writing tips also, whether student has followed the directive of the question or not. Most students, they write everything about the topic which they know, which is whether it is relevant or irrelevant, they don't think, but this is not correct. So, for example, if directive is discussed, It requires analytical exam explanation and balanced coverage. If directive is critically examined, it requires exposition of the idea, criticism, limitations, and evaluations. If directive is evaluate, it requires judgment, not mere narration. If directive is compare, it requires similarity, differences, and philosophical implications. If directive is elucidate, it requires conceptual clarification with precision. So these are few examples. So once you, we have to read the question and again just to understand what is the directive. Otherwise, you will miss the directive, you will not get good marks. Structural discipline also very, very important. For example, if the question has two parts or three parts, each part has to be addressed properly. Each part has to be addressed in those number of words which is required. One, you cannot spend 90% of words on one part and 10% for other. This is very, then you will get only half of the marks. Your maximum marks itself will reduce to half of. So, for example, one example, if the question is explain Shankar's concept of Maya and critically evaluate Ramanuja's objection. Now, if you write 90% on Maya and 10% on Ramanuja's objection, you are not going to get good marks. You have to do 50% you do for Shankar's concept of Maya and 50% evaluation of Ramanuja's objection. So then only both parts you have covered. So this is the example, but usually students try to neglect that, particularly second part. So you are not going to get good marks. So structure itself shows incomplete understanding of question. Top answers are balanced, proportionate, and tightly aligned to the wording of the question. So this is part of the directive only, but then the number of parts, question is having more than one parts, you have to address all the parts equally. Now, then next, the examiner will go to conceptual clarity and philosophical understanding of the answer. And this is real evaluation. So first stage is a kind of visual evaluation is preliminary exam. Now this is the main exam as far as the answers are concerned. So here the examiner checks whether the student genuinely understand ideas philosophically, and what he will see whether answer is accurate without confusion. Now some examples have been given. I'm not going in those examples, but this he is going to see whether your answer is accurate or not, conceptually accurate or not, whether correct use of technical vocabulary has been done or not, because some philosophical terms, references, names have been correctly used or not. So this also he will try to do. I've given some examples. I'm not going to read that, but the point is you have to understand that concept plus various references, philosophical terms, phrases, all these things, proper use is important. Then philosophical flow of argument. We have discussed this earlier also. Each paragraph, it has to be paragraph wise, smaller paragraph. Answer should develop logically, and then basically it should go, it should not be random. Because I have seen many answers. Sometimes you write something in paragraph, then unconnected thing you write in second paragraph, then something else comes in third paragraph. So those things are not going to, it has to be logical, basically growth of the answer from one introduction to the exposition, then critical evaluation, then final conclusion. So all those things should be very, very logically linked. It cannot be abrupt. Comparison and criticism. This is very, very important, as we have seen in our 2025 exam paper analysis also, and earlier strategy also. So this has to be very, very important and included. In fact, I keep on suggesting students, even if it has not been asked, if you can, you mention one sentence or two sentences just before the conclusion, this comparison and critical view for each answer. This will really fetch you better marks. So examiner looks basically for tension, limitations, counter arguments, internal inconsistencies, comparative insights, etc. And comparison can be, as I told, one philosopher in Western philosophy, intra and then inter also from Western to Indian or Indian to Western, vice versa, that also can be done. Then what makes an answer look topper level? Not artificial originality, not forced innovation, but a thoughtful interpretation. So, for example, instead of saying that Kant solved the rationalism empiricism debate, a stronger answer may be Kant did not reject empiricism or rationalism entirely. Rather, he recognized their relationship by making experience possible only through prior conceptual structures. So, what happens? I mean, same thing has been reformulated, but this will fetch better marks because this reflects maturity and depth. So, in phase 4, finally, what he will see, examiner, philosophical maturity. And there he will decide whether the answer will go in A plus category or not. So, at this stage, examiner is no longer checking information, he is checking intellectual depth. Thinking with philosophy, not just about philosophy. For example, strong answers use theories philosophically. Example can be applying existentialism to modern alienation, relating AI debates to philosophy of mind, connecting Buddhist no self theory with contemporary critiques of identity, using Rawls in discussion of welfare justice, linking Foucault with surveillance capitalism. So, this will give the examiner the feeling that the student sees philosophy as intellectually alive. So finally, tone matters more than students realize. A philosophy answer should be analytical, reflective, conceptually disciplined. It should not be emotional, preachy, motivational, journalistic, or excessive moralistic. Example, another example. We should all follow Kant because morality is very important. Strong Kant argues morality in rational autonomy rather than consequences, thereby attempting to secure universality in ethics. So, this appears to be more philosophical and ethical in nature. So, final psychological impact, what will do? Common problems, what students do basically, which give weak answers. Abrupt ending, repetition, generic statements, empty praise of philosophers. Conclusion should do one of the following. What? Synthesize the debate, indicate limitation, show philosophical relevance, provide reflective closure, or indicate continuing significance. Another example, a weak answer. Thus, Plato's theory is very important. What is strong? Despite criticism of metaphysical abstraction, Plato's theory continues to shape debates concerning universals, ideal standards, and the possibility of objective knowledge. So, after this 4 phases of evaluation, examiners mentally classify first category sharp and reflective. These answers are conceptually precise, directive oriented, analytical, balanced, and intellectually mature. And they may fetch 140 plus marks. Then, second category safe and mechanical. Here, the copies are correct, relevant, reasonably organized, but lack depth, criticism, originality, philosophical maturity. Here, the 120 plus one may get. Third category will be vague and off track. Now, these answers miss the demand of the question, lack conceptual precision, become excessively general, or lose argumentative structure. And here, the marks will be below 100. And as you know, most of the students may get something between around 100 only. So, final insight, what really fetches marks in philosophy? Do not come from writing maximum amount, they come from conceptual sharpness, relevance, philosophical discipline, intellectual maturity, and controlled analytical thinking. So, a topper's answer usually is simple, clear, sharper, more balanced, more reflective, and more philosophically alive than average copy. So, basically, in today's discussion class, I have clearly told uh, the details about the foundation batch, the details about the test series, and also we have discussed what to study, how to study, what to write, how to write in brief. In subsequent classes, definitely we'll be taking up all those things in much more detail. And as I told, test series we are going to start from 21st June, and classes we are going to start foundation batch classes from 22nd June. So I request the students to take a decision and try to enroll in the class as many number in possible. We will be definitely focusing more on 2027 exam, but as I told earlier, this test series is going to be helpful, much more helpful to 2026 exam as well, because definitely writing practice is very very important, and that too if probable questions, probable topics you are doing writing practice, definitely you are going to help your preparation or upgrade your preparation. This ends my class. I will be meeting in next classes very soon. So thank you for participating in the class. Thank you.